are on.
Terrific. So at 5:03, we call the April 21st meeting of the Quality of Life Committee to order. And if we could get a roll call vote on attendance.
Of course. Councillor Jamie Cassett Sanchez.
Yeah.
Councillor Michael Garcia.
Present.
Councillor Chris Rivera.
Here.
Councilwoman Renee Villarreal.
Present.
And Chair Carol Romero Worth.
I'm here. We have some changes to the agenda tonight. There was a little snafu in the original published agenda and the one that is available right now. We are going to pull 3 items off that agenda because of the snafu. And Jennifer, do you want to read the captions for those 3 items that we will not hear tonight because of
Yes.
the error in we don't know what caused it?
Yes, I can. So the first one is a request for Partners in Education contract number 20-0568, Amendment 1, to amend the scope of services for engagement coaches to provide outreach and navigation services to improve student engagement. The second one is request for La Familia contract amendment number 1, term extension of 1 year from 6/30/21 to 6/30/22. And the third one is request for Santa Fe Dreamers contract amendment number 1, term extension of 1 year from 6/30/21 to 6/30/22. And then we will also be removing from the agenda, I think it is now item C as in Charlie, but it was previously item F, and that is consideration of resolution number 2021 to be determined, a resolution supporting the city of Santa Fe joining the mayor's monarch pledge to preserve the monarch butterfly and the habitat upon which it relies.
Okay.
And that will just be postponed until another committee meeting.
Okay. And just to be clear, the 3 contracts we are not hearing tonight because they were published on the agenda. Somehow they disappeared from the agenda. We don't have an answer yet as to why, but we do not want to hear those because they have been taken off. And just in an abundance of fairness, we're gonna pull them off tonight. So is there a motion to approve this agenda as amended?
Madam Chair, aren't we moving another item as well?
Oh.
Presentations, is that?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. And then I wanted to move the presentation on the Starlabs program to the front of the agenda because we do have 2 guests with us. And I just wanted to be considerate of their time. And Liz, if you're okay with that, we would add that to the agenda as well. Okay, so I'm getting a nod, yes. So with those changes, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
And just for clarification, those items that are being postponed, that will be until the next Quality of Life meeting?
Well, the Monarch pledge would be postponed. I don't know if the contracts they may still need, I don't know that they still need to be here. I don't know what'll happen with those. Jennifer,
I believe they do. I believe they are going to be heard.
Okay.
It just kind of depends if this postponement, if there's some other kind of timeline they need to hit, they might just go to one committee. Maybe they just hit finance and then go to governing body, but I have a feeling it'll come back here.
Yeah, and at least one of those contracts was already approved at finance. So I can't remember on the other 2 if we've seen those before. So, okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
And my apologies on the agenda snafu. It was a stressful 20 minutes before this meeting.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can we have a roll call?
Yes, Councillor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Chris Rivera,
Yes.
Councilwoman Renee Villarreal,
Yes.
Councillor Jamie Cassett Sanchez, excuse me,
Yes.
Chair Carol Romero Worth.
Yes. All right, now that we know what our agenda is, are there items from the consent agenda that the committee would like to discuss tonight? Counselor Cassett Sanchez.
Very much. I'd like to pull item what is now, hold on, I was using the fancy space bar thing, but it's not working. Now item A, the consideration of bill number 2021-9, and item B, right? Is that the one? Yep.
Yep.
For affordable housing. Both of those to discuss amendments.
Okay. Anything else from the committee? Let's see, I don't have my thing that shows hands. All right. Looks like that's it. So with that, can we approve the one item that's left on the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All right, can we have a roll call on the consent agenda?
Can you repeat, sorry, who seconded that, Madam Chair?
I believe Counselor Garcia, or was it Counselor Rivera? I'm sorry. Who seconded it?
I did, I believe.
Okay, sorry. You guys are
Thank
both
you.
right next to each other on my screen, and I was like, well, it came from over here, but Counselor Rivera made the second.
Okay. Thank you so much. Counselor Chris Rivera,
Yes.
Councilwoman Renee Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Jamie Cassett Sanchez,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
and Chair Carol Romero Worth.
Yes. Okay, so approval of the minutes from April 7th, 2021. Are there changes from staff?
None from me, Madam Chair.
All right, changes from the committee. Is there a motion from the committee?
Move to approve.
Second?
Can we have a roll call again?
Councilwoman Renee Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Jamie Cassett Sanchez,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Chris Rivera,
Yes.
Chair Carol Romero Worth.
Yes. All right, from there, we will jump to presentations, and we have a presentation on the Starlabs program. And with us tonight, we have Liz Camacho, the Economic Development Communications Administrator, and she has two guests who I will let her introduce to help us with this presentation this evening. So Liz, take it away and welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, counselors. I will do an overview for about 5 minutes, then questions, and that's when my guests will also jump in. And the two guests that we have is John Mertz, who has a accelerator program. He's the founder and CEO of Santa Fe Innovates, and Patrick Duran, who works with community outreach. Patrick, is that correct? With Lanel. And formerly, he was also working with Ben Ray Lujan. So thank you both very much for joining us. And I will proceed. Jennifer, can I share my screen?
You should be able to, yeah.
Yeah, did that work?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And Starlabs is up there. All right, so I'll go into this. And of course. So basically, Starlabs is a program that came to us. We heard about it from somebody in Albuquerque, Travis Kellerman. He's an impact strategist, and he heard about it from the Chief Innovation Officer in San Francisco, and he brought it to our attention. And they were basically very much saying, you know, it would be really great with government if government can bring the power of academia to better serve people. And so it's a national program, a research program that's funded by the National Science Foundation. And as I said, it connects government and academic teams to co-develop and apply research to offer different solutions to critical issues that are happening in communities. We applied to the program on August 31st, and we were accepted. basically the application was pretty simple. So I was a bit like, so I heard that you guys didn't have 3 or 5 people, but why did you, what was the basis of what was the criteria for acceptance? Basically, what they looked at was the year of experience of the people who were signing up. And so that demonstrated the commitment, the seniority, the experience, the commitment that a city had to the program. And that's what they based it on. As you can see, there's various other cities who are also part of the cohorts. Once we got accepted, I asked John to join us because John he sits on the board of Santa Fe Business Incubator. He has his accelerator program. He's getting his PhD, which I thought, oh, that'll help me with really reaching out to academia and really bridge that conversation. And John is also super respectful and really proactive. So I think that was like, as opposed to going at it solo, collaboration can get you kind of some really great creative work. So from there, the Starlabs team, they brought in a moderator from the University of Berkeley, and they did a workshop with us. It was a design thinking workshop that John and I participated in. And basically, with the first brainstorming that we had at the workshop, I think one of the things, some of the topics that we were brainstorming is what's going to be our critical issue? What is it that we're going to be exploring? And we thought, one of the things, and this was particularly because this was in August, September, that COVID was hitting, and we're like, well, there's a lot of critical issues that are really happening, but we want to make sure that we are really looking at youth, because youth is one of the things I think that a lot of the families in Santa Fe really think about what's going to happen to the future of our young people. So that was one of the things that we had brainstormed when we said when we did the workshop. The other concern we had was I had just come out of an equity training that Neil had done, and one of the things that he always emphasized was when you have an equity narrative, you want to also talk about how something benefits the whole, even if you're focused on a smaller group. I had just come off a project where we distributed sanitizer, face masks to the 87505 zip code. And some of the feedback that I'd gotten was, hey, you missed me. Like, why wasn't I getting anything? And so it was a bit, and this is where the equity training really helped me, because I explained like what we're doing is something that really trying to address the issues for our more vulnerable communities. And that'll actually prevent everyone and the higher contagion rates. So when we've distributed the bags, we focused on mobile home parks and apartment buildings. Do you live in a mobile home park or an apartment building where multiple families live together? And then that kind of really got the conversation about not how you're focusing on how they didn't get a bag, but how what you've done for a smaller group can actually benefit the whole of Santa Fe. So that was another thing I think when we talked about it, we were like something that we can focus on. And even though we're focusing on youth, it can benefit the larger community as well. And one of the topics that also came up, and I think this is predominantly some of the experience that John really brings to the table, is his tech background and also his social entrepreneurship. He can speak a bit more to the mantra that they have, which I think is, if I remember correctly, I think it's like business for good. And that's another reason I also thought that John would be really great for this program, because he wanted social entrepreneurship that would benefit everyone, not necessarily something that's just entrepreneurship for the sake of entrepreneurship, which can actually benefit everyone. But I liked John's focus as well. And as we were doing the design thinking, one of the things that we said was, we really need more data. Like here we have a lot of anecdotal information, but we don't necessarily have enough data for us. And in the design thinking, one of the things, and this is still brainstorming, so it wasn't completely conclusive, we had, what's the current state? And it's particularly when we thought about technology, one of the things that we said is, it just seems that sometimes tradition wins over innovation. And they said, if you could reframe this, how would you reframe this? And we said, well, if Santa Fe prospers for making innovation more accessible to all. And that's kind of where we had gotten to. And we had a variety of ideas. As you'll see, they asked us to hone in on one challenge, but originally we had various ideas, which was, we have, as particularly as we were in the throes of COVID, we realized we had an overdependence on tourism in terms of our economy. We thought, maybe something else that we can focus on is how can we diversify our workforce so that we can think more about as we said, the young people, but also everyone. Another one we were thinking about were increasing and promoting technology businesses. And again, as I said, John's specialty, which is kind of how can we do social innovation, but that businesses also make a profit from it. So these were some of the ideas that we started throwing around. And then we would hone it in a little bit more. And we got to our challenge, which was, and this was developed in October of 2020. So we defined our challenge, and you can see the full of the challenge at the City Innovates website. I only took kind of like the brief excerpt from it, which was really that the City of Santa Fe is seeking collaborative solutions to engage technology experts and executives for our younger generations to start companies and lead social innovation, leveraging the resources that we already have here, national labs, accelerators, educational institutions, and investors. And that really came from an insight from a dean at Sfcc. At the time, I had been working on a grant, an EDA grant for an innovation hub at Midtown, because that was one of the things that came out of the planning guidelines. That program is no longer going, but one of the things that the dean from Sfcc said was, you know, with all of the amazing resources that we have here, and I've seen so many other cities, you would think that we would be Silicon Valley. And I think that also reiterated with us kind of this idea of like, but do we want to be? Is that Santa Fe values? Like, that's not necessarily who we want to be. I don't know who we want to be, but I do believe that we want to capitalize on any kind of resources that we have available to ourselves. So that's why we brought together this challenge. And then from there, there was an evaluation process. As you can see, that happened in November, and we received 3 proposals. We received 3 proposals, one from UNM Innovation Academy, another one from Sacramento State University, another one from West Virginia University. We interviewed the different teams. We also scored them, and ultimately in November, we decided to go with UNM. And so at this point, we bring in UNM. We've got Nancy Lewis, who's coming in from Canopy for Creative Collaboration, Wellington Spektic, who's the director of New Mexico for Good program, and Manuel Montoya, who's an associate professor at UNM. And here's where we bring in Patrick, because I said, you know, we need somebody who will really help us and who has more of that inside knowledge. So I asked Patrick to join us as well, Patrick Duran. And then I also asked Mariah Tamar from the New Mexico Economic Development Department, but she's specifically from the Office of Science and Technology, to join our team. And from there, one of the things that brought up is we did have kind of like, John and I had our group because we'd been working together on the challenges, and the UNM team have worked together, but we kind of needed a way to coalesce from their proposal to what we had perhaps envisioned. And so the Starlabs team suggested that we have another brainstorming session. They again brought in the team from UC Berkeley to help us brainstorm different ideas. And they really kind of were like, but why? Or how can you get to the root of it? What is the root of what is happening between what you're saying in terms of our young people participating? Is that entrepreneurship coming? Are you capitalizing on this resource? Like, if those aren't things that are happening, why are they not happening? And perhaps there's something in either the beliefs that you have, or there's something in the predominantly, maybe there's something that people believe that makes them not necessarily able to capitalize on some of those opportunities. And so what we had gotten to was kind of, there's a tension, as I said, like, maybe we don't want to be the Silicon Valley. We're Santa Fe. There's something unique to us, and we have a great deal of heritage. And so that can sometimes, when we discussed it with the team, and this was UNM bringing in as well, there's something that could be a tension that can be perceived between the labs that we have here in our proximity, and people may associate a lot of the things from the labs with the technology industry in general. And so that may be actually difficult to reconcile those two concepts. So what happened then was Manuel said, well, here's what I think that we can do within our capacity and within the time frame that we have. He's like, with our work, what we can help you with, Liz, within this time frame is build something that he calls a design. He doesn't call it, I think that's what it's called, a design-based participatory dialogue. And I was like, participatory dialogue? I don't have the funds to do a big community engagement. He's like, I'm going to set you up so that this can be something that has actions for you. It could be something actionable, while at the same time, if you want to go further and at some point you may have more capacity, more funding, you can elaborate if it's something that you feel that would be beneficial to the city of Santa Fe. And basically the methodology that he brought to the table was sometimes we have preconceived notions, conventions, kind of dogmas, common sense, we may call them, and that we believe that these are fundamental truths, but they aren't necessarily. And he referred to Raymond Williams and his framework that he had. And he said, you know, what we can do is that it could be part of the way that you are framing things. And with Raymond Williams' work, this could be something that we can change, and we can start setting it up for with these design-based participatory dialogues for you to either decide to move forward with more, but for at least for you to understand what the root causes are for this tension. And some of the things that I really liked about what he presented was that this was, that when he presented and said, oh, this will be part of what the end of what Raymond Williams' work was doing was really to build social cohesion. And so this was something, social cohesion in cities and in other multicultural structures, particularly obviously what resonated with me was with cities. And he's like, and what we are looking to do is really look at that intersection of the social, the political, and then the economic forces to explain the cultural values over time with a given place. And he's like, you're looking at this right now in a narrow scope of what technology is today, but you may have to look at it, what technology has meant historically. And so if we find those root causes historically, this can lead you up to what are the cultural values today, and how is this something that you might be able to use moving forward. So basically he set up kind of two key questions. We will identify who participated in that period, again, because he said, look historically. So we identified together some historical periods that we would be exploring in terms of technology. And then from there, we would try to fill in what we think these communities thought about that technology. Again, referring to Williams and the structure, calls it structure of feelings. And then the second one is we will then identify several keywords. And this is what makes it actionable, is he said, what I will give you is how can you be more empowered with your vocabulary and others as well, so that you can have and reframe what you perhaps perceive at the moment as tension. And so the keywords that we play a role in how we see technology, what cultural habits were shaped by the technology in question. So basically the output of the project will be a glossary of culturally intelligent terms that we can disseminate with explanations of why these words matter, as indicated in the dialogues. And the dialogues, I'll go on to tell you a bit more about who we're inviting to the dialogues and what the topics are. We'll come to a set of recommendations for any data innovations that can take place, taking disconnected youth category and developing new ways to think about that phrase. And so how can you think about, if we're worried about kind of the youth and the future possibilities, this could be recommendations that can help us move forward. And then also other recommendations / implications for further research. He said, with the time frame we have and the capacities, we can't necessarily give the depth that we necessarily want, that you may be looking for at this moment, but this can be the beginning of something that if you want to go further with, you can explore. And why look at this topic at all? You know, like it could feel like, wow, that's super up here. Like that doesn't seem actionable. And I think the big why, and this was another person from UNM, they were saying, what you want to understand really is what's the role that technology plays in shaping the cultural values about jobs, about economic growth in the tech sector for the city of Santa Fe. And why is that particularly of concern with me? Because one of our goals is, and if you look at economic development on a state level, on a regional level, when we look at the Northern New Mexico Central Economic District, we are always looking at how do we create higher wage jobs. We are also looking at, when we think of people and their families and the youth, how do we ensure that that workforce not only fits with what the demands of our business community is, but that is also something that will be create opportunities for them. And we hear many times from people, there's a brain drain. My kids don't see opportunities in the city of Santa Fe. And so this is about the why behind of something that can seem very academic, but at the same time can then for us focus it into an area that is of importance to us, that can give us greater prosperity to our residents. This is part of a larger discussion about how we attract and retain talent in New Mexico and how we attend to the economic and social health of diverse communities that constitute our state. So what are the topics? So he said, you know, at the moment you may be looking at it narrow about the technology today. He's like, let's break it down. You can look it into the labs. That's one area, biosciences. He's like, but there's also agricultural technology, the acequias. That's a form of technology. And when you look at the past, Liz, acequias is also something that at the time could also have been controversial. It's also a form of technology. So you may be thinking that this is something that you have at the moment, but it's actually something that could be part of our cultural values and our history. Media technology. We obviously have a strong film industry in New Mexico. We have a lot of incentives for it. I think we've also had companies such as in Albuquerque, they have the Electric Playhouse. We have Meow Wolf here. There's also a lot of our incentives that go from the film industry that can be applied as well to the technology industry, which is part of the way that we attracted Savant X, a technology company that came here, and also software and computer technology and infrastructural technology. What does that mean? It means broadband, it means trains. And so these are the kinds of topics that we outlined for ourselves. And who are we inviting? Here are some of the institutions that we're inviting to have conversations with us. And I'm not saying that everybody will accept our invitation, but these are the ones we're putting in, we're inviting to have a conversation with us. The Business Incubator, Lanel and Sandia Historians, UNM Health Sciences, North Central New Mexico Economic Development, the Acequia Association, UNM Center for Regional Studies, the USDA Agriculture Service, UNM CRS and American Studies, Meow Wolf, Earth Care, Currents New Media, Electric Playhouse, HD3, which is an accelerator, Descartes, Falling Colors, Pebble Labs. As you may see, there are also companies which we have received LEDA funding. And so I think that one of the things for us is, if this is something that obviously economic development helps fund, I think that that's also something that for us, we want to understand with greater depth. Catapult Partners, Flow Science, City of Santa Fe, Counselor, Microgrid Systems, and Little Globe. And what is the cost to the City of Santa Fe? So most of the cities participated with $10,000. We were in the throes of the COVID pandemic, and I said, I can offer 8,000. So City of Interface decided they would add 2,000 to the pot. UNM committed between 15 to 20 hours per week to the research project. That's of three different people from their department, and they will also have the support of a graduate student to assist us. There's approximately, and obviously I had started the program before UNM came in, so 150 hours from the City of Santa Fe staff during over a period of 1 year from September 2020 to September 2021. And City Innovates really gives us the software, the updates, the design thinking expertise, the management. And this is just some of the team. Nancy Lewis, who's the director, as I said, of Canopy for Creative Collaboration at UNM. Wellington Spektic, who is a lecturer of Sustainable Business Management, the director of the New Mexico Good for Good program. And Manuel Montoya, who's an associate professor of international management. His work is focused on global political economy and how we make the planet a meaningful part of our social and economic realities. That really concludes, and I will let you guys please ask questions. Let me stop sharing my screen.
And Liz, do we want to hear from your guests a little bit too?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, yes, definitely. Patrick, John, if there's anything that you would like to add in terms of this, I would greatly appreciate it.
We don't bite, I promise.
Yeah, I'll just chime in a little bit, Madam Chair and councilors. It's great to be here, and it's great to be a part of this project. I think Liz did a great job of outlining kind of how we got here and the scope of the project. And I think it's really just I think it's exciting to try to figure this out, and how social innovation can really play a role in attracting and keeping our younger generations here. I think the last study I saw was done in 2018 by UNM Business Research, where Santa Fe was experienced significantly more growth on the 65 and older age group, and a lot less in the 25 to 34. So if we can do something to attract more of that younger generation to do that, and social innovation and social entrepreneurship fits very well with a lot of the traits of the Gen Z and the millennials. So we hope that there's a great alignment here, and that this project will kind of help us move things along and making that change here in our city. Thank you.
Great, thank you for being here tonight. Patrick Duran, do you have anything you want to add at this point?
Thank you for having us today, Madam Chair and councilors. Just really want to say that I'm, very pleased to be part of this project and to represent Lanel on it. I think it's a very important topic to delve into, and something I know I've been a part of conversations for at least the last decade or more. So I'm very happy to be a part of it. We're just starting out the group discussions that Liz mentioned, but we were able to have a conversation with both Lanel and Sandia historians last week, and that was very intriguing, and I really look forward to the dialogues that will be coming forward. So more to come. Thank you.
Great, thank you for being here tonight. Questions from the committee? Councilor Cassett Sanchez.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Camacho, for your presentation, Mr. Duran and Mr. Mertz for being here. I'm very interested in this. I love this idea of the connection of how we connect academia to policy. And so my first question is, my understanding then is, out of this year-long project, I'm assuming that there would be tangible policy recommendations. Is that the deliverable at the end? Am I correct in that understanding?
So no, I think it would be much more, as I said, the output of it would be they would provide us a summary of the report of the dialogues that we have. They will also be providing us with the glossary of culturally intelligent terms. So to reframe the topic with the terms, and a set of recommendations for data innovations. So there's really much more of not necessarily direct policy. For me and for John, it's been a year project. As far as the UNM team, that's a 16-week project for them. So this is really something for them. They said, we can give you recommendation and implications for further research, as that might be more of a community dialogue that you would want to have. And so you begin with the smaller dialogues, and then from there, we would give you the foundation if you decided to expand it.
Okay, so this kind of sounds like a first step, is what I'm understanding, in this exploration of how we are addressing this particular topic. Okay, I think some of my questions might be a little premature, but I'll go ahead and pose them anyway, so at least I'm planting them. One of the things that you mentioned, Liz, about, do we want to be Silicon Valley? And I would say that there's a resounding no, because there's a lot of things that have happened in Silicon Valley that have really concerned me. And I know that when I've had conversations about specifically the tech industry coming to Santa Fe, and there really is almost this push-pull of, how do we create jobs that are good paying jobs? How do we build a system so that, our kids that grow up here can really come into these jobs? But at the same time, how do we deal with the already increasing problems of gentrification, of families being pushed out, of not being able to afford Santa Fe, of the income disparities and the inequities? And I'm not sure if that is part of what will be the conversation in this first iteration of this discussion, or is that something that we potentially would be looking at in future discussions?
I definitely think that would be part of a larger conversation, and this would only be, as you mentioned, the foundation, but it is really important, and I appreciate your recommendations and suggestions, because there's something we can obviously input into the project. Some of the things you mentioned are definitely outside of the scope, and I agree, we do not want to be Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I had a feeling based on the conversation that you would agree with that statement. And then the other piece that I'd be curious if we are discussing with them is talking to the schools, because so much of this does have to do almost with that education pipeline and where this starts. And it's not necessarily enough to start it in college, but how is this really feeding into the elementary schools, into the high schools, and providing those opportunities for our kids so that they do see, the interest is planted and then they see a potential opportunity. So have you guys reached out to educational institutions besides UNM and community college?
We have not, and you know what? I feel completely embarrassed, because as I was looking at the invites, I was like, "What? We talk about youth," but I don't see any youth authorities there. So a little bit of a mishap, I think. But we've scheduled most of our interviews for after May 1st, because that's when I think the professors on our team have a little bit more time. So I think we can definitely do that. And if you have any connections and recommendations, I have found that people are most likely to participate if somebody who knows them asks them to join. And I can give you all the language to invite them and what the timings are. What I can't necessarily do is change too much the timings, because it's a lot of people on our team. So that makes a little bit like, So, but yes, definitely we would appreciate any connections that you might have. And I think that, and I will too, incorporate that in here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we can definitely connect online and talk more about that. And then I also am the council liaison to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board. And given that this is a focus on youth, I would really like to see how we can loop them into this conversation and really be getting their perspective. I think that is a very important piece that we sometimes don't elevate. So I would love to speak with you more about that, and we can also chat about that offline as well. So thank you so much. I have no further questions.
Great. Other questions from the committee? Councilor Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your presentation, Liz. It's good to see you and to meet your other partners. And I did have the same questions as Councilwoman Casas-Sanchez, and just about the connection to equity from a larger perspective and as it relates to displacement and gentrification. I think those terms like that you're wanting to come up with, if you're talking to community members, I probably wouldn't call them culturally intelligent terms. Like that doesn't resonate with me. I'm like, what does that mean? Instead of just really like talking to people about their lived experience. So I think just terms and the way you say things are important. And when we talk about high tech, that may not even resonate with people about what that it could entail. I mean, the fact that you're seeing the connection to the Sfcc systems and how that was a historic and current technology that was innovative. And so I think that and that we're still using, and it's useful and it's still functioning. I think those connections, like making the connection to historic models that we've always used and how they relate to like present day, is always a good way to like connect with people. But yeah, I think just the term high tech is always like, I myself, like, what is that? What could that entail? What could that mean for me? And for young people, they probably have more inkling than me because I'm in a different generation. But I also feel like to be able to explore what could fall into that area is like what is possible. That I think that's very important. And then just the connection to youth serving groups. And I'm blanking because I'm zoomed out on too many Zoom meetings since 1 o'clock, but the group that works with youth and tech and connects them. And I don't know why I'm not thinking of their name at the moment.
Counselor Villarreal, are you thinking of STEM with Lena Durbin? No, are you
No.
of
No.
Jennifer
Jennifer.
Jennifer Case Navarez, not Jennifer Case.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that she does projects that are really engaging for youth, and it's fun, and they see the connection to technology. So I don't know if she's part of your network. See a yes, maybe.
Yes, Counselor Villarreal, I think that's a great suggestion.
And then the other thing I just was curious about, because you sped through the first part of the presentation, but you didn't talk about when you applied and who were the folks that made the selections?
This is the people from the City Innovates and Starlabs. Why it's two separate titles? And if you ask me what STIR stands for, I am at a loss. It's just all these acronyms we get thrown around sometimes, and you forget to ask. So my apologies, Counselor. I don't really know who made up their committee, but I like the idea of the project, and so I went forward.
So what was the criteria that they had that they were looking for that I guess the reason why we got accepted? Just curious what the criteria was, or how we qualified, or I don't know what were the like pieces that made it a good connection with the city of Santa Fe?
Counselor Villarreal, if I may not so humbly brag, what they really focused on, because I asked as well, I was like, oh, but what happened to those 3 other cities? Why didn't they get accepted? And they said, part of what demonstrates a city's commitment to the program is who will they be putting to lead the program? And here your experience in terms of market research, advertising, and one of the things I said is you definitely don't have as much government experience as many of the other people who are participating, but your level of seniority, I think, elevated you to a higher rank.
So are you saying, Liz, it was because of you?
Dude. Mexico City, 5 years in Paris as the Pan-European director on an automotive account, 4 years of product development in pharmaceutical, 4 marketing effectiveness awards. It was me. Not so humble brag. Thank you for the questions, Counselor Villarreal.
Congratulations. That's great. I want to learn more. I don't know if this was the email you sent us about being involved, or was that something else? There's been too many emails when we're in budget meeting hearings. So
it was, and we understand if you couldn't make it. I had Counselor Villarreal, we reached out to you because of your background. And now I think if Counselor Jamie Cassett-Sanchez will also be willing to participate, I think we'll also reach out to her. And obviously, counselors, if you would like to participate in any of the conversations, let us know, and we would be happy to bring you into the dialogue.
Sounds good. And there were different meeting themes. Is that correct? That you'd be having different discussions. So is that possible just to participate in one, or depending on? It's just hard to be able to like be part of the whole series of conversations.
Yes, we would only be inviting you to one of them. And I think Councilor Villarreal, what we'd have to do is I would discuss it with the team in terms of who would want to participate and which of the topics that you would fit into. So those themes were the topics that I put up on the screen earlier.
Okay, I'll get back to you on that and figure out where I can plug in that would be most useful.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you. And I'm excited to see what's next and where this goes, where it leads to possibilities. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, and Mr. Duran, you have your hand up, and then I'll go to Councilor Rivera.
Sure, just wanted to provide some information, Madam Chair and councilors. So Starlabs stands for Socio-Technical Interaction Research Lab. And New Mexico Youth Works, Jennifer is a close partner with the lab. So that's just one example, I think, of why Liz brought myself and Mariah on board is to help with some of those partners that we all work very closely with in our everyday worlds. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Can you say the acronym again? Socio-technical, say it again, sorry.
Sure, sorry about that. Socio-Technical Interaction Research Lab.
Great.
That's what I could find.
Councilor Rivera, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Liz, I didn't know, you accomplished so much in your 25 years of life that it's just amazing to me how much you've done. So, so I think, other committees or other groups that have done studies like this eventually kind of get caught up in the housing shortage and everything that goes along with that. I would hope that we don't spend a lot of time on those things that we already know are issues, that we focus on other things that will help us to keep our youth here. And one of those, which I hear about from the youth as well as from kind of young adults, is that there's nothing to do here in Santa Fe. So, do you think there will be a look at maybe the social aspect of keeping kids, young people here?
Councilor Rivera, I think that's an excellent point. It is something we have thought about in economic development. I don't think it's in the scope of this, but I completely agree. When the bowling alley opened here, we were ecstatic. It was so exciting. I think some of the programming that we see and hopefully what economic development can bring to the table in the future is maybe more event-based activities that will not only help businesses, but will also be more exciting for people in Santa Fe. The scope of this won't cover that necessarily, but I completely agree with you. There are probably multiple factors. Some have been overexplored. It's not the scope of this one, but yes, that's definitely something I hear as well.
Yeah, and I imagine now with the passing of the cannabis laws, that maybe agricultural technology is something that may be very interesting for the young people coming out of high school and moving forward. So I'm glad that's part of the discussions that you all will be having. So that was it, really. Just wanted to see what the focus might be on the social aspects of creating things for young people to do here in town, or at least recommendations on that. But we'll wait. I'm excited about it. It looks like a great thing that will be done. I'm looking forward to hearing the results.
Thank you, Councilor Rivera. We're excited to share the results, I think. I'll let you know when I get the results, if how excited I am.
Councilwoman Cassett Sanchez, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Councilor Rivera said. As the resident millennial on the council, as my generation is frequently targeted, and in terms of the social aspect, I think that there's two parts to that. There's the social aspect of just for young adults, and then there's also the the young family aspect of, I know that that is something that is discussed frequently among my peer groups of, young moms, of this discussion of there's not enough to do with our kids. We're thinking of moving, to all of these different places because there's just more activities for children. So just wanted to tag on that it's both activities for adults to do when they don't have their little humans with them, but also how that factors into people deciding whether or not they're going to stay here and plant roots here. That was all.
Yes, thank you. All right, other questions from the committee? I think we've covered the groundwork. Very, very interesting. Thank you for the insights, and thank you for the presentation, and thank you to our guests for being here. Look forward to hearing how this goes. So
Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. All right, we will then move to our items pulled from the consent agenda. The first one is item A, consideration of a bill 2021, an ordinance amending section 11-14.5 Sfcc 1987 to dedicate half the sales from any sale or lease of city-owned land and buildings to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Councilwoman Cassett Sanchez, I believe you pulled this first, and we'll start there.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I was pulling this to discuss an amendment that unfortunately we did not get to Jesse in time. We were working on it this afternoon, so we did not give him ample amount of time to get it up into the packet. Sorry about that, Jesse. But this is a follow-up from the presentation that Chair Romero-Worth had brought to us regarding the Economic Development Fund and how this would impact the Economic Development Fund, and the discussion that Director Brown had given us regarding some of the really important nonprofits that we're funding in economic development, and how it would be probably decreasing their contracts. And what we are proposing, and it is myself, Councilor Romero-Worth, Councilors Lindell and Abeta, who are sponsoring this amendment, would be that we would not take dollars from the leases, but just from land sales to put into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And in addition, not put a sunset, but put a review on a time factor to review this again in about 5 years. As we know, things change, and as we're going to be looking at different revenue sources for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the economy is hopefully going to recover from COVID, but again, it's another consideration that we want to make sure that we are staying on top of where we are allocating our dollars, and that we are still in touch with the times, given that we don't know what 5 years in the future is going to look like. Councilor Romero-Worth, if you have anything to add to that, please do.
Yeah, and I think the big reason why the amendment wasn't ready for tonight, other than the fact that we didn't get it to Jesse with enough lead time, and working with 4 sponsors and getting everybody's approval takes more time than we allowed. I'm not sure. I think the second part of the amendment that we're working on is how do we make sure that in 5 years we are forced to come back and look at whether we still want to take half of any land sales. And so it might be, I just want to throw this out there, it might be a sunset, because when something sunsets, then it's brought to the attention, oh, this is sunsetting, and people go, okay, wait, we better look at that. Do we want to continue it on? So I just want to say that there might be a sunset, because that's the mechanism that forces things back in front of us. Or it may be something else. Again, I think Jesse and Aaron are working on that language. And when you see it, I just didn't want you to be surprised if it actually is a sunset. And again, I don't know what that language or that mechanism is yet, but that's what we're trying to do. And I think what we'd like to do tonight is move this bill forward with that concept in mind, and we'll have the written amendment ready for its next stop.
And that was it. I mean, if there's any, questions from colleagues, we'd be happy to discuss the amendment.
Councilwoman VRL.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just curious, did you all think about what that calculation then would be with taking out the lease funding or revenue, and it would just be land sales?
Yeah, so I think it would just be 50% from any land sales. But the idea is that because, as we heard, the leases, they know how much they make from leases, the Economic Development Fund, and therefore they plan on that money. Whereas the land sales, as Councillor Lindell has said, is sort of like birthday money. You don't know that you're going to get it, so you wouldn't budget for it.
Didn't they have a projection though for potential land sales? Rich said something.
Yeah, I would defer to Alexandra if she knows, but they may. Yeah, I'm sure.
Madam Chair. Oh,
go ahead.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, in the FIR, I think we had included we had included 2 potential sales coming up.
Did that, hold on, I'm bringing that up again. Prime Gov is slow. Okay. Did it break it down by?
If that's helpful. So it says the only upcoming possibilities of public offerings, former Boys and Girls Club at Alto Street appraised at 400,000, and the Northwest Quadrant appraised at 3.2 million. And these land sales would generate 1.8 million for each fund.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, if I could also point out that in the Economic Development Ordinance, there is some sort of catch-all language where the governing body can dedicate upcoming land sales to any use that it wants. So the Santa Fe Estates, for instance, was dedicated back to the general fund to be used for Midtown, where normally it would have gone into the Economic Development Fund. So there is, I guess there's a little bit of prioritizing that can happen as sales come up in the pipeline. So that's why we didn't put a lot in the FIR, because it's a little bit hard to know exactly what we can count on.
Right. Okay, so in a way, this might be more, well, it's not going to be immediate, is what I'm saying. So we would put it in place for future revenue at this point. So, because if we take out the lease revenue, then we're not looking at necessarily revenue and or consistent revenue anytime in the near future. Is that correct? I don't know who I'm asking, but
yeah,
that's
correct.
Not from this source. I would just want to clarify that, because we have within budget hearings, we've recently been discussing that we are making a commitment that there is going to be at least $3 million in there that we will make up from the general fund if we're not getting it from other resources. So I would say that's correct, not from this source, but not overall for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Right. Okay. And so at this point, because we haven't seen the amendment, will this come back then to our committee?
Well, see, what I was thinking we would do is we can just, we held this here because I think we needed some time to think about what would be the right idea to not impact the funding that was already being used. And I think because you don't have an amendment in front of you, I think it's probably hard to approve it, but I think we could approve this bill knowing that this amendment is coming and it fixes the problem that we identified. So I guess we could leave it to the pleasure of the committee, but I think you can approve the bill and just know that the amendment, as soon as it's drafted, will be available at its next stop. And as we know, amendments aren't adopted in officially for real until the governing body meeting, even though we try to work on them here.
Right. Well, if we move it forward, it would be as is with the possibility of this amendment
Right.
coming forth. What's the time frame for the next?
I don't,
Goes to a public hearing on the 28th, I believe, at our next governing body meeting.
So then we would see and hear about the amendment then again, I guess.
Yep.
Okay.
But
Alrighty.
just so you know, that's what it would do.
Got it. I mean, to me, it's it's a good idea, and then we'll see what it actually does in terms of like revenue generation into the future. So
Yeah, well, and I think again, to Councilor Cassett Sanchez's point, we know we have $3 million in this current fiscal year. We know we have $3 million in the fiscal year that we're discussing as part of the budget hearings. And then, who knows whether we may sell some land this year before what is it, July 1st, 2023. So this may generate money in time for when we'll need the next hit. So Councilor Rivera, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess the thought process in this was that economic development had that steady stream of income, and we didn't want to just take that completely away from them. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Was there any thought into, because I think a steady source of income for affordable housing is also important. Was there any thought of leaving that part, the leases split, but then splitting half of the city-owned land, those funds that came into both departments equally?
Madam Chair, I can answer that.
Okay.
I think the balancing act here, because you're right, it's sort of trade-offs, right? Was that really it doesn't generate that much money, but it makes a huge difference on the economic development side when they can plan their programming and their how they're going to achieve their economic development objectives through the contracts that they enter into every year. So I think the thought was affordable housing getting birthday money in a big pot once in a while is actually a little bit more impactful because we can plan for it a little bit when we know it's coming and then create momentum around a specific project. And we don't really need that steady smaller amount because we already have the programming piece covered both through our general fund budget, but also because we have that much in our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So we would be sort of taking that away from economic development and not really adding to the impact of the trust fund. Whereas the big once in a while birthday present, that can actually end up having more impact.
And the only thing really in the pipeline then would be the property off Alto Street, correct? Because the other property you mentioned has already been spoken for.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, the Santa Fe Estates project was the one that was dedicated to the general fund. The one in the FIR is the Northwest Quadrant, which is another piece of the Northwest, close to Santa Fe Estates, but not quite. It's an undeveloped parcel, so we don't really, I think that the estimated value is a little bit of a guess there.
Okay, so from what I gather, you're okay with this amendment and proposal. It makes perfect sense, and I mean, I know you'd like plenty of money in your department, but if you had to choose, this would be a good way to do it.
Madam Chair, Council Rivera, I think so. And I think, it's probably also because I've been the interim head of economic development. So I appreciate the value that those contracts bring to the city and the support that they provide. So I think, yes, I'm very happy with it getting set up this way.
Thank you. That's all, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Rivera. Councilor Cassett Sanchez, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I did just want to speak a little bit to some of at least my thought process in this. One is that we are about to undertake this, project where we're really going to be looking at permanent sources for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and we're not doing the same for this Economic Development Fund. And so we've kind of bought ourselves some time with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund with funding from the general fund. But there's also this piece, and Ms. Ladd referred to it as that balancing act of the idea that affordable housing, in a sense, it's a relative term. It's affordable to what our residents can, or I'm sorry, it's relative to what our residents can afford. And the other piece of that puzzle is providing economic opportunities so that they can afford to live here. And so that was a lot of my logic there, is that to me, these are really related things, that people are able to afford to live here if we have good paying jobs. And, to our presentation earlier, that there is this pipeline and the ability for people to have access to these jobs. And so by cutting off of economic development in order to kind of serve affordable housing a little bit more, we're not quite working at the whole picture, and we're a little bit working against ourselves. So that was some of my logic here when looking at these different funding sources and the big hit that it would give to economic development, as well as the other resources that we are really providing to affordable housing, and making sure that trust fund is fully funded right now from the general fund until we do find a more permanent and steady funding stream. So just wanted to provide a little bit more of that logic that went through my head. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other thoughts, questions? What's the pleasure of the committee?
So I'm not sure. Can we pass it without really seeing the amendment, without having it in the packet?
So you could pass the bill. I wouldn't pass the amendment. I just
Okay.
wanted to talk about it as this is the solution that's coming forward. And it has support from 4 counselors who will be bringing it. We just didn't have the language. So I think what we're doing is, we had held the bill because we didn't know what to do. It seemed like it wasn't quite drafted right. And now we figured out what to do. So
sorry, Madam Chair. So then it'll go to the governing body for a public hearing and a vote, and the amendment will be presented that evening.
Yep.
So somewhere, will it be presented? I'm trying to think of how our meetings run. Will it actually be presented before the committee, before the public hearing portion, to give the public maybe an opportunity to weigh in on the amendment as well?
It'll be posted with the packet for that meeting, but it won't be talked about in a public meeting. Councilor Cassett Sanchez, you have your finger up.
Hopefully this is a public meeting. We are talking about it, although the language would not be there.
That's true. Very good point. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so
We don't have the language in front of us, but it will be part of the packet. I mean, I think we did have draft language this afternoon. It just didn't have the part about how will we be, what's the trigger for us reviewing this funding option in 5 years to see if this is still how we want to be using that money. And that language is what was lacking. Councilor Cassett Sanchez.
The other option is that if individuals would like to see the language, I believe that Public Works will meet. And so if you all wanted to pull it back to Public Works on Monday, we would have language by that point if it did want to be heard and seen in a committee. That is another option.
I just don't know if it would be better to hear it and at least have the amendment passed by one committee, but I think we do amendments at the governing body meetings anyway. So never mind, I just answered my own question. It's probably fine.
Either way. All right.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion from Councilor Rivera and a second from Councilor Cassett Sanchez to approve this bill. And we'll take a roll call. Jennifer, are you here?
Sorry, I'm here. I have to switch screens to unmute myself. Councilor Jamie Cassett Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Chris Rivera,
Yes.
Councilwoman Renee Villarreal,
Yes.
and Chair Carol Romero-Worth.
Yes. All right, that passes and we are on, sorry, to item B, a resolution. Hold on, trying to get Prime go. There we go. A resolution establishing a work plan for improving access to affordable housing opportunities for residents of the city of Santa Fe. And I believe we've talked about this a lot. I think we do have Councilor Villarreal, I think you and Councilor Cassett Sanchez maybe have an amendment that has come from those discussions. Am I right about where we are on this? And maybe, I don't know, do one or both of you want to talk about that?
Are you looking at me? I can't tell.
It is really funny. Yes, I'm looking at you. Go ahead.
So this amendment passed, the amendment that Councilwoman Cassett Sanchez and I are proposing passed at the Public Works Utilities Committee meeting. And then so there was another one as well with Councilor Garcia and Cassett Sanchez as well. So they both passed unanimously. And so at this point, I don't know if I need to explain. I made some adjustments based on our last conversation here at this committee. And I guess I'll just stand to see if anyone has any questions on those amendments.
Okay. And if we don't need to talk about them, do we have a motion?
I move to approve sorry, I'm really fried with Zoom
Yeah,
right now.
I know. I'm trying to move us along so we can all have
I move to approve the resolution establishing a work plan with the amendments proposed by Councilor Villarreal and Councilwoman Cassett Sanchez, and also the amendment proposed by Councilwoman Cassett Sanchez and Councilor Garcia.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilwoman Villarreal and a second from Councilwoman Cassett Sanchez, and we can do a roll call.
Sorry, I'm here.
Worries.
Just waiting on Prime Go. I'll do it on paper and then add it later. Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Chris Rivera,
Yes.
Councilwoman Renee Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Jamie Cassett Sanchez,
Yes.
and Chair Carol Romero-Worth.
Yes. All right. I think that's it from the things that were pulled, right? So we'll go from matters from staff. Jennifer, do you have anything tonight?
I do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, matters from the committee. Other than we're fried and tired of Zoom. Matters from the chair. I have no matters other than our next meeting is Wednesday, May 5th. And look forward to seeing you then, but I know we'll see each other very soon. So have a good night. We're adjourned.
Good night.
Bye.